Hello and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. And today I'm bringing to you part one of my two-part Q&A answer session. Mimi's down here with her little tail being all beautiful. When I reached 1,000 subscribers, I put a video out saying thank you very much to all that had subscribed, and also asking if anyone had any questions for me because I was going to do a Q&A in celebration of having 1,000 subscribers. I got quite a few questions back, so I decided to split it into two parts because no one wants to sit through and watch me in my all grey loungewear talk for an hour about myself. I'd probably like it, but I'm not sure many people would. So what I've done, I've just written down all the questions in the order that I got them, not in any particular order, which would have been much more sensible if I'd have done them in sort of like booktube, questions about books from when you were a kid, etc. I didn't do that. I've just written them down, so we're just going to start working through them now, and we will start now with Liz from Now Voyaging. Hi Liz. She gives 3 questions. Who gave you your love of books and reading? What is your favourite thing about booktube, and any advice for new booktubers? So who gave me my love of reading? So when I was younger, not much of my family are readers. I'm like the biggest reader by far. My dad enjoys a book, and when I was younger he would sort of like encourage me to read, and my mum and dad always bought me books for Christmas, and my mum and dad would take me to the library. So like my mum and dad, they sort of gave me my love for books, I guess, not in, maybe, I wasn't like, oh my god, they're reading so much, I want to read like them, but they were very encouraging of taking me to the library and buying me books and things like that, which was lovely. What is my favourite thing about BookTube? So my favourite thing about BookTube is the fact that I've made so many good friends on BookTube. When I joined, I did not expect that to be a thing at all. I thought it would be lovely to be able to speak to people about books, like-minded people about books, because although I've got a few people in my real life that do read, I haven't got anybody that loves reading quite as much as I do in a sort of like obsessive way. So I thought that I'd be joining BookTube in order to sort of chat to people that I could about books, to give my own views across, and I've made some really good friends. So I've got a little Voxer group with myself and 4 other booktubers, and we speak every day, which is absolutely lovely. I've got a few more other friends on Voxer who I speak to sort of intermittently, which is wonderful. I've got friends that I speak to on Goodreads all the time, on Twitter. I've got people that I've met up with, I've got people that I'm going to be meeting up with, and it's just such a lovely community to be part of, and it's really, really lovely. Yeah. Any advice for new booktubers? So if I had advice for new booktubers, what I'd say is just talk about what you love, talk about your passion, because it's easy to do that. And like if someone sees that you're into something, if I'm watching a video and someone really loved a book or someone really hated a book and they're quite passionate about it, then I'm like, oh god, I want to know what this is about. So I'd really say talk about things that you're passionate about. For instance, like if you love graphic novels, then do a video about graphic novels, because I'm going to be banging into that, because if you have passion for it, then I'm up for it. So yeah, just and do it basically, just go for it, because that's what I did and I love it. So Little Library says, what is my favourite fantasy book and why? Now Little Library, I haven't really read much fantasy, and that is something that I do want to remedy quite soon. So this is a complete cop-out, but my favourite fantasy book that I've read was probably Game of Thrones, the first one, because it's the only sort of like actual fantasy I can honestly say that I've read and enjoyed. But I do want to read some more. I'm reading Rebel of the Sands at the moment, which is another fantasy book, which isn't like, I'm not loving it. Who sung that? Loving it, loving it, loving it. DJ Luck and MC Nate. But yeah, Game of Thrones, I would say. Wonderish says, what are the top 3 books you recommend, and how do you convince a reluctant reader to pick up a book? So the top 3 books that I always recommend are Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, which is probably one of my favourite books of all time. It's my favourite book of last year, and it's one of my favourite books of all time. It's just amazing. It is literary fiction. The main thread that runs throughout it is a love story between 2 characters, Abimze and Ifemelu, and they are a Nigerian couple. Ifemelu, who moves to America to better herself and to get an education and things, and Abimze tries to join her but cannot and gets sent into undocumented life as an illegal immigrant in the UK, and then it just follows so much. There's so much going on, and it's just an amazing, amazing read. I absolutely adored that book, so I always recommend that. I really like Life After Life by Kate Atkinson. That's another book that I recommend often. And what else do I recommend? Oh, this one links in with the next one. So the next question is, how do you convince a reluctant reader to pick up a book? One book that I would recommend for reluctant readers, and I do recommend it quite often, is a YA book called Wonder by R.J. Palacio. It's about a young lad called Augie who has a facial deformity, and he has been homeschooled his whole life, and then his mum and dad put him into school, and it's just like the way it's told. I enjoy the way it's told from different perspectives, and you hear from Augie's perspective, but you also hear from like Augie's sister's boyfriend's perspective, and all these people that sort of link together. And that I thought that was a really, really great book, and I think that's a really good book to get reluctant readers in. David, being a reluctant reader, David, would you say you're a reluctant reader?
Yes.
He read Wonder. How many days did you read it in, David? Tell me.
2!
2 days. That is unheard of for David to read a book in 2 days, and he really enjoyed it. So I think that's a really good way to get people into reading. Also, graphic novels, I think they're a great way to get people into reading, because they don't feel like you're actually, although they feel like you're sitting down reading a book, there's not so many words in there, and a lot of it's sort of like done very quickly, and I think that's a great way to get people into to reading. And also children's books, like Harry Potter is like my biggest comfort read. So if I ever need comforting, then Harry Potter is what I will read, and I defy anyone to pick up Harry Potter and not want to read the whole thing, because if you don't, there's something wrong with you. Anyway, Novel Expectation says, what are your 2 favourite genres, and what books would you recommend to newbies of that genre? So literary fiction is my favourite genre, which is very broad, but it is true, and Americana is a book from that genre that I would recommend. Another genre I enjoy is graphic novels. Now, I'm quite a newbie to graphic novels, and I don't claim to have any sort of like knowledge on them, but graphic novels that I've enjoyed, Jane the Fox and Me by Fanny Britt, and I cannot remember the name of the other girl. Someone Arsenal? Fanny Britt and Someone Arsenal. Find it. Jane the Fox and Me, which is a brilliant graphic novel about a young girl who's been bullied, and it's all sort of like, all the illustrations are in a grey, and she loves reading Jane Eyre, and when she reads Jane Eyre, there's colour in the illustrations while she's reading it, and it's just so beautiful, and like she feels like her only real relief from being bullied at school is to read that book, and that is just lovely. I really, really love that. I got that out from the library, but I want to read more of that, so that's one. So that's one I'll probably be buying. Also, the Tamakais, Gillian and Mariko Tamakai have written a few graphic novels. I've got 2 here. This one's Summer and Super Mutant Magic Academy. I think they're very good places to start, because they're quite girthy as well. You get a lot of bang for your buck. I'm putting these guys back down here without falling over. So those. And Winks and Ink says, which book best captures Minnie's personality? And there's also a similar question. Amy Smith, I believe, where are you, Amy Smith, says, if Minnie was a book character, who would she be? So David and I have a discussion about this, and we are pretty certain that she would be Veruca Salt from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, because she is a spoilt little madam, and if she wants her dinner, she gets her dinner. She wants to beat her mummy and daddy up, she gets to beat her mummy and daddy up. She wants to go to sleep, she will go to sleep. If she doesn't want mummy and daddy to go to sleep, she will not let mummy and daddy go to sleep. She is spoiled, and she is Veruca Salt, isn't she, David?
She certainly is.
She's over there now just looking at me, knowing that I'm talking about her. Mummy loves you! So that's a very good question. Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Laughing said, if I could arrange to go to lunch with 2 or 3 characters from various books, who would I invite? And a similar question was... Oh no, Winks and Inks asked that question. If I could arrange to go to lunch with 2 or 3 characters from various books, who would I invite? And Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Asking asked a very similar question. If I could have dinner with 4 book characters, etc., who would I choose? So obviously I'm going to pick someone from Harry Potter, and obviously that person, I'm not saying obviously, but like, that person will probably be Hermione, because I adore Hermione and I think we'd have a good old chat, and she's just super cool and amazing. If we're going for like intelligent girls, I'm going to go for Matilda as well, because we can just talk about all the books all the time. And then, if we're going for a bookish lunch, then I'm going to round that up by asking AJ Fikri from The Storied Life of AJ Fikri. He is a bookshop owner and knows everything about books. I'm going to ask him to come along as well, and we're just going to have a wonderful bookish lunch. So that is who I would invite. Okay, so I had 4 people asking questions about my old wallpaper. So Kristen from Vienna Waits Books, Francesca from Utterly Uncool, Amy Jane Smith and Angela Werner all asked me, where is your wallpaper from? So you can see I don't live in a wallpaper land anymore. David and I have moved house. But the wallpaper that we had was from Homebase. It was a Mickey Mouse wallpaper. I'm sure you can have seen it in my videos before. and I love that wallpaper, and we were very, very sad to leave it, and there was talks of wallpapering an MDF board merely to hold it up behind me when I was filming, because that's how much I loved it. So the story of the wallpaper was that David and I were due to move house, but David wasn't sure if he wanted to move house, and I said, well, if we move house you can have a Mickey Mouse wall, and that's how we got the Mickey Mouse wall. So it was very, very sad to leave that wall, and we'll be very sad about it for a long time, but I've tried my best in my corner, and I hope it's good enough for you all. I hope it is. Rosie Reads Book says, if you went to Hogwarts, which magical subject would you most want to learn? That's a bloody good question. Do you know what? I love unicorns, so probably Care of Magical Creatures. I'd be really into that. Charms is going to be really helpful, and I'd be bang into that as well. And also potions would be quite helpful, but Snape is not my friend, so like I would not enjoy being taught by Snape. Although I think he's a very, very good wizard, I don't think he's a very, very good teacher at all. So I'd probably go for Care of Magical Creatures or Charms. Yeah, I'd go for one of those two. She also says, what was the last book I read that really made me laugh? So the last book I read that really made me laugh, and I looked through my book journal, was Spectacles by Sue Perkin. So Sue Perkin in the UK is one half of a double act called Mel and Sue. She's a TV presenter and a comedian, and she co-hosts the Great British Bake Off, which is a really big popular programme in England about making cakes. And she's just so funny, and I read her autobiography and I found it hilarious and touching in places, like actually made me cry in places too. And yeah, I just thought it was really, really funny, and I was like laughing out loud and all sorts. So that was the last book that made me laugh. Leanne Rose asked, how did I get into radio? If I could hang out with one Harry Potter character for the day, who would it be? So I do a monthly radio show on my local radio station, which is BRFM, and I got into that because one of my sister's friends, actually, she used to go on there, and they did, like, she runs her own business at home to do with skincare and things, and I saw she'd been on there talking about skincare, and I thought I could do that at that book. So I approached them and said, look, I'd love to run a book club on the radio station, would you be interested in having me? They said, of course we'd be interested in having you. And that's how it started, and I do that once a month, and that's very fun. So that's enjoyable. And also, if I could hang out with one Harry Potter character for the day, who would it be? That Harry Potter character would be Crookshanks, because I would just love to just be with that little smushy face all day, but I'd make sure Minnie wasn't there, because Minnie would attack any cat that wasn't her, because she doesn't like other animals. She doesn't really like other people, apart from me and David, actually. Jade from Boho Bookworm says, what's been the toughest thing on BookTube so far, and how did I overcome it? So, honestly, the toughest thing on BookTube has been leaving my Mickey Mouse wall. Like, I was super upset to leave my Mickey Mouse wall, because I just felt like it really made, like, when I saw it on the background of my videos, I was like so pleased with it, and I just really loved it as a background. So when I had to leave that, I know it sounds really pathetic, but that was a really big thing for me. He Reed says, what is the top book that I love over all others? So, over all others, my favourite book and favourite book series is Harry Potter. Like, that is my number one. I also really love to read Wuthering Heights. That is a book that I probably read once a year, just because I just love the way it makes me feel when I read it. It feels really, like, just atmospheric. And Americana, that I read last year, that's quickly become one of my favourite books, and I think it will be something that I reread a lot, because I just love that book. Right, Eva from Fred Weasley Died Laughing says, who was my biggest reading influence growing up? And I think my biggest reading influence growing up, and I've mentioned her already, was Matilda from Roald Dahl. So I read Matilda at a very young age and actually thought I was Matilda. And just the fact that she was like so sweet and like used to read so many books, even though people didn't want her to read books, and I just love Matilda, and I think she's my reading influence, and she is why I wanted to read so much. And I've got a lovely little Matilda print up there, which I won't show you now because it's out of focus. And Aoife also asked, what are my favourite kinds of BookTube videos to make? What are my favourite kind of BookTube videos to make? I like doing my wrap-ups, because I like revisiting what I have read that month to sort of like remind myself and be like, oh my god, I've read that this month, that feels like a million years ago. I also really enjoy filming my favourites. They're not my, like, they're not the videos that get the most views, but I really like filming favourites, because then I can go back and look at them and be like, oh, that's what I enjoyed that month, and that's what I loved that summer, and things like that. So yeah, they're not my highest viewed videos, but I really enjoy filming them and actually going back and watching them again. Secundra Beasley said, how do you arrange your books on your bookshelves? So, I've recently moved, as I mentioned, and I've now got, I've put a lot of books into storage, and I've also put a lot of books into charity shops because I was just like, look, these are all second. A lot of my books before I got into BookTube were second-hand books, and I was like, I'm not going to read these again, so I'm probably going to get rid of them. So I've got them in a sort of like rainbow. These are books that I own. Behind here, so I've got my blues and greens here, my reds, oranges and yellows here, my purples and my whites and greys there. Then behind here is black and sort of like multicoloured. So my Roald Dahl collection, my Jane Austen collection, ones that wouldn't really fit in. And then in this bookshelf, I have library books, and then the top shelf is books that I've read this month. So that's how I've got them arranged nowadays. Book Paradise says, out of my top 3 favourite genres, who are my favourite authors? Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She's my favourite author. J.K. Rowling. I really like all of her books. I'm not. It's not just Harry Potter. Like, I love The Casual Vacancy as well. That's one of the best books I've ever read. And I really like the Robert Galbraith series as well, which she also wrote. Yeah, so she's a favourite author. Well done, Tick. And who else do I like? Kate Atkinson. Kate Atkinson is also another favourite of mine. That woman can do no wrong. She's amazing. And my last question from this section is from Elizabeth Spooky House of Books, which is an amazing name for a channel, by the way. It says, out of all the authors you haven't read yet, which are you looking forward to and why? So I'm actually starting a series about this. I put out the first episode, so part 1 of episode 1. It's going to be a series of authors that I haven't read yet, which at the age of 30 I definitely should have done. So the first one is about Daphne du Maurier. I've never read any Daphne du Maurier. So episode 1, part 1 is me talking about what books I've got, what books I'm hoping to read, what I come to expect, what I'm hoping to expect, and a little bit about the books that I've got. And then the second part will be me talking about some of those books that I've read. So Daphne du Maurier is is the first episode. I also want to do Ali Smith. I've never read anything by Ali Smith, and Maya Angelou. So they're ones that are coming to the forefront of my mind straight away, of people I haven't read. But yeah, so those 3. So Maya Angelou, Daphne du Maurier and Ali Smith. And that is it for part 1 of my Q&A section. I hope this isn't dragging on forever. Thank you very much if you have submitted the question. If it hasn't been answered in this video, it will be in the next video, which is coming out soon, so keep an eye out for that. And I'll see you all again soon.